Hey, howdy, folks. You're joining us here on Expanded Perspectives with me, Cam Hale, and sitting across the table, of course, as always, the Cheech to my Chong, the kosher to my salt, the dill to my pickle, Mr. Kyle, the Mac Daddy, Philson.
How's it going out there, everybody? We're glad you're tuning in this week.
Philly, real quick.
Yes, sir.
Did you get a chance to watch the Crazy Moon thing that we talked about watching, the DVR?
Yeah, the Sci-Fi Channel had a special called The Aliens on the Moon.
What'd you think? Well, wait, I'm not even going to get us started in that. Go ahead, tell everybody what we're going to get into, and then let's discuss that.
Other than the Aliens on the Moon documentary, we're going to talk about the declassified plans for a moon base, the ancient Sumerian song recreated from a 3,400-year-old cuneiform tablet, the hover bike that is basically a giant quadrocopter, a woman that speaks a foreign language without even knowing it. It's a language from 150 years ago. The drummer from Megadeth has a UFO encounter. And after the break, we're going to get into the real Men in Black sightings and the connection between UFOs and owls.
So that's a lot of stuff, folks. We got a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, we got a big show tonight. That's right. Yeah,
we got a bunch of wild stuff we're going to cover. What did you think, man? I had some stuff that I really enjoyed that I saw on there, and then I had some stuff that I couldn't really get into.
I thought it was a neat show. Our guest on our last show, Robert Morningstar, talked about a lot of aliens on the moon and stuff. It's a topic that I've been fascinated with for a long time. And like I mentioned on the previous show, I've seen documentaries about the moon and the bases that are on the moon. And then this most recent documentary, the same thing. You see these images on the moon of these apparent establishments that are there, these bases, as they call them. But, man, if they don't do that color correcting and stuff like that, it's really hard to see.
Well, that's exactly what I thought. Look, if you were to show me that picture in regular black and white, I would have not known. I would have just looked right past it. Yeah. But when they showed it to me in color, I was like, and I still really couldn't see anything. And it's probably just because I'm not that intelligent. When I was looking, I'm like, I don't know what they're talking about. The coolest stuff that I liked, though, were the one thing I think I told you just recently. We were talking about is that puff of smoke that come out of that tube.
Now, I did see that. There's a apparent smokestack or something that's coming out of the surface of the moon. They even said it was like 22 miles high.
Oh, I don't. It was neat. Like I said, I do enjoy it. It was. Man.
I've never seen that footage before, and it does look like a puff of smoke comes out of it, doesn't it?
Well, and you and I even talked about this too. And we've talked about this multiple times. Is with what the technology that we have now, how come we don't have better photographs of that? Why don't they? We've got the Hubble telescope.
I've always wondered that.
Like you said, we've got satellites that can read people's license plates. We can't turn it on the other side and see what's going on at all these different spots, or is it because, truthfully, they don't want us to see? Is that what's going on?
It does seem, it definitely fits that profile. Like you're saying, we have satellites that are capable of taking photographs of minute details. Everybody has Google Earth accessible by your hands, and everybody's probably done it. They've zoomed down on their house, and you can see the car, the swimming pool, stuff at your house. It is weird that, even on an anniversary of us landing on the moon, that they don't take some really good photographs of the flag still up there, of the Luna rover still up there, or some other things. I don't know. I really wish that we had better pictures. But, that's what this whole documentary is about, is these are photographs taken both from Soviets and the U.S. and NASA and stuff, and then they go through them, and it looks like there's some strange structures on the moon, and it does look strange. But I don't know. Man, I don't know.
I'm the same way. I don't.
It showed art they called bridges and things like that. But there's Arches National Park in Utah and stuff. There are things like that on Earth. Is it just natural anomalies, or is it more? I don't really know. Now, I will say this: there are photographs I've seen that were not brought up on this show, where there's apparent objects on the moon that have been totally blurred out, or paint brushed over, or airbrushed over. They didn't bring up any of those, and I have seen those, and those have always been like, man, what is that?
Well, and the tracks that they showed that were on the moon too.
Yeah.
I love it.
Is it extraterrestrial though, or have we been secretly building things up there for years?
Well, it's funny that you say that, because we were going to discuss this. Is from Ashley Feinberg from Gizmodo, and there's actually a declassified document that came out about the government secret plan for a military moon base.
Okay,
so it makes you start wondering. You start seeing these things popping up. So apparently, in the 60s, there was a study that was actually dubbed Project Horizon that was actually released earlier this week. This week, by the National Security Archive, that talks about something that the Cold War actually induced, that they were wanting to build some bases up on the moon. an actual military bases up there, which is it's something that's always been talked about.
This is pre-Cold War, correct?
Yeah. Well, this was like 1960 was when they talked about it.
So before we even landed up there, they had already had it in the works. They had plans to build a base up there.
Well, or you could say before we knew that they landed up there.
Right, okay.
And they were talking about what they said is that they were going to be able to use like nuclear reactors later on, that they knew by the time they got this technology they could use. Now, you know, I don't know a whole lot about nuclear reaction. What I didn't know how it actually created power. Apparently, it's just a big steam engine. Yep. It's kind of the way it works. Well, where's the water going to come from on the moon if you're going to use
that's
a nuclear
good question.
reactor?
That is a really good question. Yeah, I never thought about that.
Yeah, who knows? So, but they were going to be, you know, making like these lunar like D9 cats where they could big bulldozers to push dirt around.
Right, and build a barracks and everything else like that up there.
They were going to build a whole big base up there, which is funny that, like you just said, you know, 10 years before we landed on there, 9 years, whatever, before we landed on the moon, or have we already been to the moon? You know, that's the whole.
You know, you're talking about previous to
yes.
Okay.
Did this come out because this is what they wanted to do that really pushed us to the moon, or did we get there a few years earlier?
Well, and it's a perfect plan. If you were going to build a base and you didn't want Russia or anybody else to know about it, wouldn't you build it on the backside?
Yeah, you would build. Well, and they even say in the article that the goal of what it says in that release paper was the goal to have 12 men living and working on the moon by 1965.
Yeah,
and that was just only 5 years after they even published the paperwork for the government. That's some pretty big steps. Either somebody had some grandiose plans, or they were a lot farther along than what they let the public know about.
Right, yeah. That's probably
really
what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, they're always a couple steps ahead.
And then, of course, you know, they always say that they were going to be able to use like maybe they could bring water, or they could try to gather water from there. I don't know if there's no atmosphere, I guess, to really to gather anything from. Right. So you'd have to bring it and reuse it. But still, man, you can't cool down any kind of reaction. I don't know. It would have to be solar power, I would assume, would be the only way you would be able to, you know, at that time. And even if they were even capable of it at that time, I have no clue. But there's some really neat stuff, folks. If you go to Gizmodo, you can check it out. I think Kyle and I tweeted some stuff out about it. It's really neat to read. Knowing after that show came out, it's really interesting to go back and read it and see. But like I said, if you can get on Gizmodo and just search up the government secret plan for military moon base. And there is a lot of things to read on here that make you think, you know, that maybe it really was a little farther along than what they actually let on.
Yeah, that is interesting, the plans they had in the works.
Yeah.
Even if they didn't, you know, fulfill them. Or maybe they did.
Well, maybe they did fulfill them. Maybe there really is. That's maybe the reason they don't show us everything is maybe they're up there right now. Or maybe there's multiple. Maybe that's where the Illuminati, or that's the new Bohemian Grove, is they all go up there and all the big guys from all the other countries, that's where they meet. That's where they have their summit, is they meet on the moon, and that's where nobody can eavesdrop on them. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
It's crazy.
Did you see on the Ancient Origins website, they just had a new message on there about the ancient Sumerian song recreated from a 3,400-year-old cuneiform tablet?
I did see it, and I did listen to it.
Isn't that crazy? It's playing behind me right now in the background, but the scholars from the University of California at Berkeley have brought to life the ancient sounds of Mesopotamia following the decryption of a study of an ancient cuneiform text that dates back to 3,400 years. It's known as the lexical text, and the corpus of the ancient cuneiform tablets, which range in time from a 3rd millennium to the 1st century BC, were discovered in the early 1950s in the ancient Syrian city of Ugarit. Before this time, virtually nothing was known about the Sumero-Babylonian. Nothing was known about their music, aside from the type of musical instruments that they used. But now they found this text, and they created music out of it, and you can hear it. And it's pretty cool. I mean, just to play music that was created over 3,500 years ago. I mean,
yes,
it's a really neat discovery, and I really like that. Everybody knows I'm a huge history buff, and to me, that's really neat. But in addition to the one song they created, they said there was nearly 40 other hymns in cuneiform writing that they were found on fragments of clay tablets that they have not released yet. And apparently, they're hoping to record the whole thing, and then you can buy the album.
Maybe they'll get remember that old group Enigma when you and I was like in school, did all that crazy like monk chanting, and maybe they'll get Enigma
I remember that.
To sing in on top of some of this. Because I'm with you, I really enjoyed the fact that it always sometimes it's so much controversy and doom and gloom when you find all this historical stuff, but when you go back and find like the guys have found those old ancient beer recipes that they've made that's like 1,000-year-old beer recipe, or you find this right here that's, you know, hymns that could have come from 3,400 years ago. That's awesome. I
It
love
is
to
neat
hear
because it's
music
like
from
taking a
that
time
point.
machine back in time. You're actually
Yes.
listening to the music that they were listening to 3,400 years ago. That is pretty cool.
And the really wild thing is it's not bad. So it's one of
No,
those things.
it's very.
It stands. Music stands the test. Good music stands the test.
It
of
reminds
time.
me of something when you go to like a massage parlor or something very
what?
meditation. Yeah, you never been to one of those?
What are you
I only go to
talking
the
about?
Korean ones.
What are you talking about? I don't even know what you're talking about. Deny. Yeah, I like it. I like the fact that they found something. First of all, that tells you how intelligent these people are. And somebody like you and me would have looked at that stuff. We'd have never been able to decipher it and went, "Oh wait, it's music."
Yeah,
I'd
I'm
have
not
went
musically
like,
gifted.
What
at
is
all,
that? Is
no.
that like a recipe?
That's why I can't dance either. I can't keep a beat. No way.
There's no way. Yeah, there's people way more
And
intelligent
I've seen you
than us.
dance. I mean, you're horrible. But then your son, he's a very good guitarist.
Yeah, right? I can't do anything. He can play the hell out of the guitar.
Well, and my youngest son, Luke, man, that dude, I think he's going to be a musician. He loves music.
Just drawn.
He just always has.
That's the way
since
Brandon
he was
was.
one.
That's the way Brandon was. He was drawn to it forever, and then just, anything with strings on it, he'll play it. Doesn't matter what it is. Not me.
Yeah,
I can't.
not me at all. I love music, but I can't play it.
No, I can't even play like
I took guitar lessons under duress. My mother used to make me go to guitar lessons when I was a young child.
I remember that
and
because
I hated it.
you used to throw such a fit because you wanted to do ballet, and she used to make you go do. I remember that. You know
No,
what I played?
I don't remember that.
I distinctly remember that. I like to play the shaker, that egg shaker. I'm really good at the shaker.
Yeah, I
And
like the
cowbell.
cymbals. I like the cymbals.
Cowbell, I'm good at that too. I'm good at that.
Did you see on Epic Times, they have an article out about a woman that speaks a foreign language without even learning it. And she speaks it as it was spoken 150 years ago.
Well, I saw part of that, but it's one of those things I blew right by it. I was like, because you always hear like people, they get these head impacts, these head traumas. One guy got like a head trauma. He never could play any musical instrument like we discussed, and he's just playing the hell out of the piano. So I didn't think anything of it. So tell me about this, because if this is legit, I want to know how this happened.
Well, it works in with somebody we've spoken to, Dr. Jim Tucker.
Oh,
we had him on our
goodness.
show, and he worked with a predecessor, Ian Stevenson. And that's where the story actually comes from. In the 1970s, the famed reincarnation researcher Ian Stevenson, he encountered a woman who could fluently speak a form of Bengali, spoken some 150 years earlier than she was born. Now, modern Bengali contains about 20% English, loan words. But this ancient text is unspoken at this time. She spoke completely fluently as though she was raised in Western Bengal, a region which she had memories of, though she had never physically been there in her life. Now, she was raised in Nagpur, India, speaking Marathi, which is a bit like Hindi and English combined. But when she was 32 years old, she started having a new personality emerge, and she began calling herself this Sharada. Now, she talked...
When she turned 32?
Yeah, she just all of a sudden started having this...
Wait a second now. Is this the girl in the picture?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's her?
Yep.
Okay, I wanted to make sure that's really, because the way you were talking, it was like it happened back in the 70s. So that can't be her.
Well,
because that girl's kind of hot.
Yeah, maybe that picture's not accurate.
I think you just shanghaied me. Go over with your story.
Anyways, when she was 32 years old, she started
Your
having another
silly
personality.
shenanigans.
Right. And she talked about having, remembering a past life. And this girl was not, simple. She had a double MA degree in English and in public administration, and she was a part-time lecturer for the university there. But when this other personality would take over her, sometimes it would be a week at a time, she would recognize families and friends from this past life.
So it was legitly bleeding over into her life.
That's exactly right. Instead, Stevenson and his fellow researchers spent a couple of weeks investigating her story over the course of a couple of years. They checked up on the places that she had remembered in Bengal, and her descriptions were accurate in terms of distances between places, geographical layout, and etc. She even gave the full names of family members, including her father's name. When Stevenson found the genealogy, it matched. She actually knew the family lineage of this so-called family she once belonged to years past.
Man.
So, just like we had when we talked to Jim Tucker, I mean, there's no doubt that this woman has like a past life, right?
There's connections there.
I mean, how do you explain that? She's speaking a language that's not spoken today. It was 150 years ago. She has family members, friends of the family, and she knows their names. She knows critical details about the city that she supposedly came from, and they all checked out.
That is crazy, isn't it? You're right, though. How do you argue with that?
I mean, I guess if you wanted to create an elusive hoax, you could go through a lot of trouble and maybe concoct it, but man, the chances seem slim.
Well, I agree. You could go and concoct this. You could go and get the
learn
information
the language.
needed,
you could learn
and the
family
people
names,
and the whole thing. But if you're not going to be like put in a movie and they're going to write books about you and you're not going to get super famous, well, what's the point?
Exactly. I mean, I don't know how Dr. Stevenson came about this woman, but the chances of it being fake seems really, slim.
Yeah, I love the stories like that. I love the past life stories.
Me too. I think
that.
It's incredible. Just the numerous cases of children and other people having past life memories.
And the fact that they're so detailed.
If you haven't read those books,
super
folks,
detailed.
Jim Tucker's got 2 incredible books out. One's Life Before Life and one's The Return to Life. And I suggest you pick those up. Man, I read them, and I read the first one in one night. I mean, it's so. I mean, it's like you can't put it down. It's amazing.
Yeah,
the stories of just all these kids with these stories.
And then we talked to him, and it was the same way. I was like, man, there's just too much. There's way too much. Let me ask you this, brother. Have you been on Motherboard lately?
Yeah, I go there every week.
Did you see? I'm going to ask for this for Christmas. Did you see about the big hoverback?
Yeah, I saw that. That looks crazy. It reminds me of the thing from Return of the Jedi, those speeder bikes, right?
Speeder bikes. Well, it's like those quadricopters that you and I have talked about, that they've made. It looks like it's
like the little remote control drones.
Yeah, like the little. That's basically what this thing is. It's just a lot bigger version of it. And I hope if Chris Malloy is listening, I want to shake your hand, sir. Because Chris Malloy is from the UK-based company Malloy Aeronautics, and he's the man that invented this thing. And I want one of these, man. They call it the Drone 3. So they actually stole the idea of the drone, but it's like a third. Of course, the drone is like a third his size, but the hoverback, they said, has actually been in development for years. And I guess they got what it says here is they made a perfect reward for their new Kickstarter program to raise the funds for the actual hoverback. And the coolest thing I like about it is, of course, it shows these photos here, and they've got it ratchet strapped down where they can gas it, and it won't take off.
Right.
I've always wondered about these things.
Why has it taken so long to create something like that?
Well,
right? I mean, the helicopter's been around for a long time. I mean, don't you look at that and go, yeah, it's a quadrocopter.
Well, yes. But what I always wonder is, with a helicopter, there's kind of some, I guess you could call them fail safes. You got a bubble around you. You got all this stuff around you. The same. How high is too high with like that? If it's,
I don't know. Once it loses resistance, does it lose its lift?
I mean, yeah, I know exactly what you mean, and that's what I want to know is how high will it go? Because that's you look through the story, it really doesn't tell you that. They tell you that it can carry a certain payload weight, that they're going to cost this much or that much, and that's kind of what you'd expect to see, but. When you really want to start asking questions, you're like, okay, first of all, it's like anything else. It's how high would this thing go? It's like a motorcycle. How fast will this thing get going? Do I need to really watch myself, or can I just let myself go? Because we've got friends and we got listeners, and I mean, there's plenty of us out there that you're going to hear the hold my beer, watch this, and you're going to just give it the hammer. And wow, and that thing's going to take off,
Man, that is neat.
You know what I mean? The next thing you know, you're going to nosedive into the dirt, something crazy like that. But that's what's going to happen. Somebody's going to be here, watch this. Let me set my beer down. I'm going to get on my hoverback and watch me take off. The next thing you know, you're 150 foot up, and then you drop it.
Well, you remember when we were kids, they came out with the hovercraft. You've seen them before. It looks like a big black bag.
I even got in one. I even rode in one time.
Really?
Yeah, it was crap.
It's neat, but I mean, it's not really hovering off the ground. What is it, an inch maybe?
Well, it was like a big bag of air with just a big blower motor on the back of it was kind of all it was.
This thing has clearance. I mean, you can walk underneath it.
Yeah. Once it gets, and that's what it's still too big. We still haven't got the technology we need, in my opinion, to get it narrowed down to where it's,
did you
it's
see,
like a motorcycle.
In 2022, the country Qatar won the chance to have the World Cup in their country.
Okay.
And they're building stadiums, I think 12 new stadiums. They're actually building a quadrocopter, gigantic, and they're going to make an artificial cloud because the average temperature in the summer there is like 116.
Oh, awesome.
And this thing's going to hover above the stadium, providing shade for all the people. It's an artificial cloud, but it's basically a ginormous quadrocopter.
That's awesome, but why don't they just make a roof?
I don't know.
You're telling
and
me
they haven't created this thing yet. This is their plan, right?
You're telling me you couldn't make a roof for cheaper than a ginormous quadrocopter?
You're right. I mean, wouldn't that?
Why don't you just put a roof on it? Here's what you do, folks. You
because
get
the
some
fan
tin.
blowing down actually keeps the people cooler.
Oh, is that what it is?
I don't know.
You can put an air conditioning system in it. Man, that's kind of silly.
The whole country is silly.
Right? I'm going to build
Not to offend any Cotarians out there, but
I'm going to build a giant quadrocopter that's is a huge cloud when I can just build a roof.
Yeah.
No, thanks. And then it's run out of gas.
Boom, it crushes and kills everyone.
Everybody on the pitch better just take off.
Here's the thing. Qatar's got no chance of winning the World Cup, so I don't
That's
know
not very nice at all. You can direct all hate mail to Kyle, please, on that. Philly, you and I were talking about this. Folks, if you're really into some UFO video footage, you can get on the tweets or you can get on blabbermouth.net. For those of you that like to rock, former Megadeth drummer Nick Menza actually filmed a UFO on his phone from his front yard.
Yeah, I saw that. Did you see it?
Yes.
And it looks good. I mean, most of the time you see these new videos of a UFO shot, I've seen 100,000. This is one of the better ones I've ever seen. I mean, you saw it. It looks pretty cool. I mean, I can't explain what it is.
Yes. I don't know.
I urge I'm going to put in the show notes, and I advise anybody who's interested, if you are interested at all in UFOs, to check out this video. It is pretty cool. It says he shot it off a Galaxy S4 phone. But, man, you can see it doing some crazy stuff, and then you can see it go up through the clouds. And he says that he had just gone out, him and his family were out looking at the full moon. That's all they were doing. And then they spotted it.
It looks like it's yawing and pitching.
It looks like something's moving around, though.
Well, it looks like it's rotating in air, not spinning or turning, but it's like it's fighting the yaw and the pitch. Like there's somebody behind the wheel that's had one too many on the quadrocopter, and they can't get it. And then all of a second, it just kind of turns and levels out, and then just goes right up through the clouds and vanishes.
Now, look, I'm not saying that it's extraterrestrial. It could be a drone or who knows what. But man, it is a UFO in its definition. It is unidentified. I mean,
and you can tell by the way the lighting is set up. It looks like it's got where the lights are on 3 points. There's 4 lights, but there's like a triangular shape of lights that are like white. Yeah. And then there's one near the bottom part of it, like would be in the bottom flat edge of this little part of the triangle. There would be a yellow one kind of up. So it almost gives it the idea of like a pyramid shape or something.
Why are they always triangular shaped?
Maybe that's just what flies. Because it's got magical powers, baby. You know that.
I don't know, but it does seem that shape is very common. But it's either disc-shaped or triangle-shaped. That's the only 2 types of UFOs they make.
Well, and cigars. Every now and again you get the cigars, but I haven't had one in a while, man. I got to get...
Man, a cigar sounds great.
Sounds really good. We're going to have to go to break and get a cigar. So, anyhow, folks, this video I think is badass.
It's pretty cool.
I heard about it, and I'm like, come on now. With a phone, I'm like, really? I watched it. I'm impressed. I did not know a phone video would look. My phone video doesn't.
I'm impressed. I mean, Eugene, you tweeted me a couple weeks ago about what kind of camera to use. Use a Galaxy S4.
Yeah, yeah, right.
It looks good to me.
It looks really awesome. Yeah, Eugene, please check this video out. I mean, it is impressive for sure. It's impressive. Man, I'm digging it. I don't know. Well, folks, me and Kyle are going to go grab us a cigar and. Catch us back after the break. We're going to get into some more creepy, crazy things. You're listening to Expanded Perspectives. All right, folks, we are back with Expanded Perspectives. I'm your host, Cam.
Kyle Filson. Yep, I switched up on you. Cam, what do we got?
Oh my gosh. Hey man, I want to look, you've read the book, I've read the book, and then I went back through it and I was looking through some more articles and stuff of our amigo, Mr. Nick Redfern.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've read that book.
And it is The Real Men in Black. I'm sitting here holding it in my hands because it's a story that I'm fascinated with, because it's always one of those things in the back of my mind. I try not to throw it out all the time, but it's always one of those deals that it's funny how when people scoff off UFO sightings and things, how sometimes these guys show up. So it's almost like an affirmation. They reaffirm that there's something going on.
It is strange how they always show up.
Well, and of course, everybody, just in case you know, that Nick's got a new book coming out. He co-wrote with Brad Steiger.
That's right.
And it's called The Zombie Book, actually. And I think it's called The Encyclopedia of the Living Dead is what it is. But anyway, it looks like it's going to be fun. I know maybe Nick will come back on and chat with us about the stuff he's looked into.
Yeah, absolutely.
With the zombies. He said he would, so hopefully we'll get to it anyway. But anyhow, I've been doing some, research, read the book and went through some stuff and found, and I just wanted to bring up a few really interesting Men in Black stories that really don't fit all the normal Men in Black stories, like a man in gray and just some photos. It was just some very strange things that wasn't the same as your typical Men in Black stories.
I've always been fascinated by the Men in Black. I mean, I think it is bizarre that these guys always seem to show up when someone's had a sighting. Even if they haven't reported it yet, they just seem to show up.
And it doesn't even have to be that major
how would they
of
know?
a sighting. Yeah, it doesn't have to be that major. And
I know.
Okay, now there's a lot of backstory to the Men in Black. It's even one of those things, kind of like they talked about with the Slender Man and stuff, is people say that it was a hoax, that it was made up years and years ago by fictional writers, that this Men in Black thing, that they wanted to give a dubious look to the investigators that came and investigated these claims, and then it just kind of spurred into I guess like an old wives' tale that followed these stories of UFOs. But then there's so many people that have these strange things. First of all, folks, and I'm sure there's people out there that are going to know what I'm talking about, but there's a man, back in the 60s, there was a man named Jim Templeton, and he took his daughter and actually took a photo of her and near a place called Berg Marsh, and the photo has the name, the Solway Firth Spaceman. And if you search up Solway, Solway, Firth, Firth, Solway Firth Spaceman photo, you'll see it. And he was just taking a picture of her, looked like in a little rolling green hill. And behind her looks like an astronaut.
Just seen that.
Clicks, and it's like he's facing away from her.
Yeah.
And it's like the silver suit and the helmet and the whole thing. And boom, there it was. Now, Kodak claims it's not a fake. Back in the day, I guess, when they really jumped into all this, Kodak took it, looked at it, was like, look, this is real. Jim said that he never saw the person in the background. There was nothing in the background. It was just his daughter, the green rolling hills. That was it. But it looks just like an astronaut in his outfit in the background. But that's even as if that's not strange enough. That's not the strangest part of the story.
Really?
Yeah. Now, the strangest part of the story starts getting into shortly after taking it, after he took the whole thing. He was at work, and there was a car pulled up. And two fellas, hopped out of it, come over there and started talking to him.
Right.
And, they claimed that they were there for the government. They were working for the government. They wanted to talk to him. So he said, can I see some identification? Which is any of us, especially now, would do. See some ID. No, they refused. They didn't identify themselves. They didn't show anything. He said what they did was, I guess they showed him a badge. That was it. There was no marking, no writing. They claimed, like I said, to be working for the government. And the greatest part was they identified themselves with codes number 9 and number 10. Number 9, and you were number 10. That was it.
I'd like to be number 10. That was always my number.
So first of all, he's like, well, here's where, this is the problem I have with the story is, yet after all that, he still agrees to get in the car with them to show them where he took the photo. So I'm like, all right. So, but also you got to imagine, this is back in the 60s. You kind of want to do, you don't want to come up missing. So he hopped in the car and went back to the marsh with him where he took the photos.
Okay.
And he says that the questions were strange. And he says, it's, you get the regular expected ones like, where did it happen? When did it happen? Were there any other witnesses there? And all this thing. He said, but when it started getting strange, they said that two men wanted to know about weather conditions. And then they wanted to know about the behavior of the animals in the area. Now, that goes back into what Christopher O'Brien and what we interviewed him about, maybe with cattle mutilations. Like, you're talking this back in the 60s. Maybe they knew something already. So.
Interesting, yeah.
I know, it's strange. So he told them, Templeton said, hey, look, man, the domestic animals in the area, they seemed scared. He said they were kind of huddling together like they were trying to protect themselves from something. Well, they didn't like that. I don't know why. He doesn't go into that, but he said they became very hostile towards him after he told them those things. And then they went to saying, well, you're lying. This whole story's made up. You're not telling the truth. Now, why that one part of the story made them think that? No clue. No idea. But he said he would not go to all this trouble and then just say, yeah, I was lying. He's like, no, it really happened. This is where it all took place. This is what I saw. This is what happened. He kept telling him he was telling the truth. They said they seemed completely unconvinced of the story. And then they just jumped in their car and they left him.
They took him out there and
they left him. They just took him out and they left him. And that was it. Made him find his own way home. And he never, as far as I know, he never saw any more of them again. There was nothing of it. That was it. Now, like I said, you can go online and see the photograph. Look at the whole thing. I mean, it's a wild picture.
I've seen the photograph, yeah.
How do you explain that?
I don't know. Somebody dressed up in a spacesuit walking behind his daughter when he happened to take the photograph is the only thing I can guess.
It looks like it has to be staged, right? I mean, it really does.
It does.
But, if it's not staged and it's not photoshopped and it's a real story, then that's a really creepy story. But then why would these people just show up? Why would these two guys that wouldn't identify themselves show up? These two strange men.
That's the way it always is, though. They always just show up. They usually have a fedora on, suit. They're in a black Lincoln. They ask a bunch of weird questions, and then they just haul off.
Then they just take off. Well, this next story, is the William Shear case. Now, this is for our brothers and sisters listening across the pond. This actually happened in Essex, England. And except in black suits, these men were in gray suits. Of course,
gray suits, okay, men in gray.
But it's got to be, the English are stylish.
Oh, yeah.
They got way better style than us.
Especially here in Texas.
Yeah, right? Come on.
We got guys around here that still think they're cowboys.
Yeah, got their boots, their pants tucked in their boots and all this stuff. So anyway, he said that he claimed to have seen a UFO. And then a few days after he had claimed to have seen this UFO, these men showed up at his house. Just, boom, just...
Did it say where he claimed? Was he reporting it to the newspaper or his friends?
I'm sure he was just probably telling friends and all this stuff. So the strange thing was one of them stayed at the car, good cop, bad cop. One of them stayed at the car and he said was pretty intimidating. And he said the other one, I guess, came up and was really giving him a good grilling. And it all happened on the street, like out in front of his house. He came out and was talking to him. He said, now here's what's strange. On the very first visit, the story goes that the man that was interviewing him, one of these guys in the gray suit, seemed more concerned with getting into his house than any of the questions that he was answering. All he wanted to do was, he was
asking questions.
He wanted to be
wanting the answer really quick. He was really thinking about something else.
Yeah, and he wanted to be let in the house. That's all he wanted, trying to get permission to go in the house. Now, whether or not you want to get in there and you want to strong arm him, who knows? But he wanted in there, or is he like black-eyed kids? They're going to get in there and drain your brain. What is he going to do to you? But so Shear said that that of course he wasn't at all. He's like, no, you're not coming in there. He said, but both men spoke in a voice. He said that was very flat and expressionless, and he said they both had extremely pale skin. And he said, along with acting very odd and intimidating, he's like, no, it scared the hell out of him.
They had no English accent.
He doesn't say it. In the story, it doesn't say anything about it. But he wouldn't let them in his house. And they left.
Okay.
And he thought, all right, no harm, no foul. Well, no, that's not it. They approached him again, of course, at work. So now you're in a public place.
Right.
That's the way it always, like the old joke, if you're going to break up with your lady friend, you always take her out to dinner so she can't go crazy and smack you and stuff. Yeah. So that's the best way to do it. So these guys, they show up in a public area so that I guess, who knows. And they said, look, we want to talk about the UFO, but we also want to come in. We need to come inside. Shear wouldn't let them in there either. And he said it wasn't long after that he refused them the second time, wouldn't let them come in his office, wouldn't let them do any of that stuff. They left, never saw him again.
Really?
After the second time, they were done. Now, it goes on to say that he believed that his phones were tapped after that, and they were keeping, in air quotes, were keeping some sort of tabs on him and tapping devices and all that stuff. Now, the really wild story here to me, there's a bunch of really cool Men in Black stories. This one happened on September 11th of 1976. This happened in Old Orchard Beach, Maine. This is one of my favorite stories. It's the Dr. Hopkins case. And Dr. Herbert Hopkins was a family physician in the area. Been there for a while. Very well respected, very well thought of in the community. And he was just studying a UFO, just looking into UFO incidents. And they said that he says that his phone rang and a man's voice was on the phone, and he identified himself as a representative of the New Jersey UFO organization. He said, which later on you found out turned out to be phony. And he told a reporter from a 1978 story broadcast on NBC radio that, and this is a quote, he says, he wanted to know if he could come here and talk to me about the UFO case. He also asked if I was alone, and I said yes. So that's kind of a strange question to ask if somebody was on the phone. He said when Hopkins walked away from the phone, there was a knock at the door. He turned on the light. The man was already there at the door. Boom, boom.
And this was in 1976, before cell phones.
Yes, before cell phones. The man was there. And he goes on. He says, it's still that same thing, and I quote, it says, if he was even as close as across the street or next door telephoning, he could not possibly have gotten here as soon as I did turn on the light for him.
Wow.
That was it. So, I mean, you're like, well, what? Because when I read that, I'm like, there's no cell phone, there's no nothing. How did he contact him?
Yeah.
And, of course, he claims that was him. It was the same voice he heard on the phone. It wasn't anything crazy. Hopkins lets him in. He's like, come on in, we'll talk about it. He's not thinking anything of it.
Right.
You're just kind of going along with it. Now, here's another thing, and this is another quote from his story. It says, he wore a neatly tailored black suit, black shoes, black socks, a white shirt with a black tie, and he wore a black derby. It says, you don't see derbies very often, and I thought to myself, this guy looks just like an Undertaker, which is funny. And he said, of course, he sat down, removed his derby, and then, of course, Hopkins says, this character was as bald as an egg. Said he didn't have any eyebrows or eyelashes, and it looked like he had smooth plastic skin.
Wow.
Like a doll, except it was dead white color. Now, we've heard that, no eyebrows, no eyelashes. We've heard these stories.
I've heard that, yeah.
Well, that's what he's kind of alluding to. This is pretty cool because he said, now, his lips were a brilliant ruby red, and he spoke in an expressionless monotone, scanning speech. And what that means, I have no clue.
Yeah, that's
But he
bizarre.
said he constructed no phrases and sentences, just a sentence of words evenly spaced. So it's just flowing out.
Yeah, that is bizarre.
Said his voice was completely passive, with no inflection or intonation, as it were you were hearing it from a machine that could talk. I just think of the speaking spell just going on nonstop.
Yeah, I got you.
That's what I think about. Now, they sat there together, not for a real long time, he says, but he said that they both just sat there and they talked about the UFO case that the doctor had investigated. And that was pretty much it, just kind of hanging out, nothing. But said he kept noticing. The doctor apparently, you're a doctor, you're gonna be noticing a lot of things. That's what your job entails, is attention to detail. So he said that's what he was doing. Is he's telling the guy, and they're kind of discussing stuff back and forth, but he's keeping a really good eye on the dude, really kind of, keeping and I guess you could say trapping to memory all the strange things that's going on. Here's another quote of his. He says he sat perfectly motionless, and he wore gray suede gloves. Said he'd idly brush his lips with the back of the glove, and when he put his hand down, the back of his glove was bright red, and the red on his mouth was smeared, so I knew he was wearing lipstick.
Huh.
So it's like maybe he's trying to hide the ashiness or the grayness of his body. Yeah. He also said that then I could see that his mouth was a perfectly straight slit. Like he drew the lips on. It was a perfect slit.
Gotcha.
He said apparently he did not have what we call lips, so the lipstick was put on as a decoy. Says his mouth was more like a ventriloquist's dummy.
What?
Isn't that crazy?
That is creepy.
Now, it went on for a little bit, and he said then Hopkins says that the guy took a coin out of his pocket and held it in the palm of his hand. And he said that the man told him, he said, watch the coin. And Hopkins says it started to develop a silver color instead of copper right in front of him. He said then the silver became bluish, and then the penny was getting quite fuzzy. So it was like a penny, changing all these colors. He said it got out of focus, blurred, and then it was simply gone. It just dematerialized right in the guy's hands.
What?
Now, why he would show him that,
Yeah.
I have no idea, right?
He's an intergalactic musician.
Yeah,
I mean, a magician.
Right? I don't know what's going on.
It's the David Blaine of the galaxy. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, right? And he said, of course, after he finished doing the little magic show for him, he told him, he said, now you have to destroy all the UFO stuff. Everything that you've gathered, all the information, you got to get rid of it.
And this isn't a time where nobody can tell what you're searching up on the internet like they can now. I mean, you'd have to be watching him to know that he went to the public library or wherever to be even researching UFOs.
People would have to be talking in the town. Yeah, that
you know
they
were
like, that he's down there and he's checking out all this stuff, and he's down at the local library checking it out. Somebody have to call him and be like, I saw Dr. Hopkins with 4, UFO books and all. Yeah, you're right. You're 100% correct. That's pretty much the only way I guess you could say that he would know what he was doing.
Well, that's what's so creepy about these MIBs is they never really hurt anybody or anything like that. It's just they're so creepy.
Well, this gets even stranger. In that interview, Dr. Hopkins says as he spoke his last words, he said, I noticed his speech was slowing down. Says his words became slower and farther spaced, and he slowly got to his feet unsteadily, and he said very slowly, and then Dr. Hopkins says it real slow, my energy is running low, like a robot, and says, must go now, goodbye.
What?
Yeah. He says goodbye. And Hopkins says, just like that, boom, the MIB went out the door. He said, whoever or whatever he was, he clung tightly to the railing. He went down the steps outside, placing both feet on each step. And then he disappeared around the corner into the bright light. Gone.
What bright light?
I guess like a street light. Just turned the corner, boom, was gone. He said just turn the corner into a bright light. Like maybe there was a set of headlights, something like that. And, of course, Hopkins said when it was all over, he was terrified, and he did destroy all the UFO evidence sitting there.
Yeah, I think I would.
Now, this man's a doctor. This man's a physician.
Right.
And yet he sees all this, and it freaks him all out enough to destroy it. Now, look, I don't know. Like I said, I don't have any idea, but I do know that it's a badass story. But to know that kind of detail, that's something that I don't know that I would know that kind of detail about it. You know what I mean? Like I would be so flustered with what was going on that I don't know if I would watch enough detail.
It must be truly terrifying too to let someone in your house be talking to him casually, and then over time you start noticing weird
that uneasy
things,
feeling.
And then as you start noticing more and more, you're like, man, what is going on?
Well, I'm sure you've had it. The places we've gone and growing up, and the things that we haven't made the best decisions in our youth, and you would be involved in places where you could tell a fight was fixing to break out.
Oh yeah, it happened to me. I can remember specifically. I was in Deep Ellum one night, and a guy approached me and wanted a light for a cigarette. And at first, I just thought he was a normal person. And then as the conversation went on, you kind of got the sense that there was an ulterior motive there.
You could just sense it. Like your spidey sense was tingling.
Right. And so he got the light, and then he wanted to continue with the conversation, and then I was like trying to move on, but he didn't really want to let me go, and I left. But then I guarantee I was looking over my shoulder, and I was like, well, I don't know, that guy.
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, and you get those feelings,
Now imagine that's in your house.
Yeah, no.
That you've let the guy in, and now you're like, ooh, something's not right here, and you get that fuzzy off, that not so cool feeling.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I take from some of these is it's one thing that whenever you're out in the wide open, like you come to visit me at work, you're at work. It's almost like work is a wall. Like you're like, guys, I got to get back to work, or you'll get somebody to come out or something like that. But when you're at home and you let them in your home, that's a whole nother ball game. That's a whole nother level of creepy and eeriness.
They wouldn't be able to get a word in edgewise in my home. I got 3 kids running around like crazy.
Yeah. If they want to drive them nuts, I'll make them sit with my wife and my daughter. Like, why don't you ask them? They've been researching it too, and then I'll just leave. That'll be hell. I'll tell you what we'll do.
Mindless babble.
Yeah, we'll make them eat lunch with your wife and my wife. That's what we'll do. Like, y'all want to have some fun? Go sit with them too. Yeah. So it's one of those things. It's freaky stories like that these people have these run-ins with. And you brought up a great point: is they don't know back at this time by what you're searching up. They have to be involved.
They have to be watching you.
Yeah. And then this dude. He's got makeup on. He's dematerialized a penny in his hand. Then he just vanishes into light. Like, what the hell's going on?
Man.
I don't know. It's wacky. Folks, there's a few articles on here. We'll have some links to it in the show notes and stuff. Greg Myers wrote some of this, and then Alexander Light wrote some of this. And then, like I said, some of this came, from the research in Nick's book. If you're really into Men in Black, and I love any kind of these kind of creepy stories.
Yeah, I do too. Absolutely.
because it's one of those things, man, you kind of got to know your enemy. If they're coming after you, you need to know what you're looking at. So that's what.
If you're a door-to-door salesman and you wear a black suit and you're bald-headed,
yeah,
good luck.
Good luck. If you're trying to sell vacuums, you might want to change your look. And they don't even sell encyclopedias like that anymore. Remember the old encyclopedia salesman?
Yeah, I had an Encyclopedia Britannica when I was a kid. My grandparents bought it for me.
I was going to say my grandparents had a huge set too. What is it about grandparents with that stuff?
They want to ensure knowledge to their young ones.
Nope. That's not what it was. Back in the day, the encyclopedia, that was the Google for your grandparents. That was your grandparents' style of Google.
Yeah, maybe.
We have the Google now. Now when your kids show up now, what do your grandparents have for your kids? A tablet. That's what they got. That's the whole encyclopedia right there.
Oh, it's better than an encyclopedia.
Right on. Well, I hope y'all enjoyed it. Like I said, do yourself a favor, grab Nick's book if you enjoy the Men in Black stories, because I do, because it creeps me out a little bit. But so I guess we're going to grab us another drink. Uh-oh. What do you got going on?
No, I was going to say, I love the MIB stories, and I think they're fascinating. There's tons of them out there, and I'm always intrigued by them.
Hey, I tell you what, folks, if y'all have got any crazy MIB stories, or just if anybody's had any encounter with some guys that's had anything strange, and even if you don't mind us talking about it, but if you don't want us to use your name or something, email it to us, expandedperspectives@yahoo.com, or you can go straight to expandedperspectives.com. Shoot us an email, tell us a story, or you can call our phone number. You can call, if you don't mind leaving your voice and the whole thing, we'll play it on the show, 817-945-3828. And because I would like to hear some stories from some of the listeners if they've had some crazy run-ins with anything like this. So, yeah, folks, if you've had anything like that, contact us. If you don't want us to use your name, even if you want to tell the story and you don't want us to play your voice and all that stuff, tell us that up front. We'll listen to it, then we'll tell the story ourselves. We won't even use your name. So, however you want to do it would be great, but I'd love to hear from y'all.
Absolutely. Well, stay with us, folks. When we get back from this break, we're going to talk about alien abductees and the connection with owls. This is Expanded Perspectives.
All right, folks, we're back, and Kyle's going to throw down on us a little bit with some alien abduction owl correlation, and this is going to be interesting because I've kind of got a personal story to share with everybody later on. So, Philly, why don't you lay it on us?
Yeah, we'll get into that. We're going to talk about alien abductees and their connection with owls. Now, almost a year ago, in late September, early October, we were on the Grayling Report with a gentleman named Mike Cleland. And when me and Kim were invited there, we didn't know anything about him, but we became friends. And he has a long-standing tradition with alien abductees and owls, and he himself has been an abductee and has numerous occurrences with owls. And it really is bizarre. Now, in shamanic terms, the owl is always perceived as a powerful totem, viewed as an omen of death or darkness, and in some cultures, a representative of wisdom by others. You know, everybody knows that a wow is an owl. A wow. An owl is always perceived as being wise.
Yes.
I think their large eyes, they're always perceived to be able to look into the dark and things.
They're real solemn and stoic.
Right.
Like that's the thing.
Well, in 2009, Mike Cleland, he went to a conference in Laughlin, Nevada on a Saturday, and it was an abductee support group. And when he was there, he said there was about 20 of them sitting in a circle, and during the 2-hour session, one guy sat silently for almost the entire time. But near the end of the conference, he raised his hand and he cautiously asked, "Has anyone here had any experiences with owls?" And he nearly jolted out of his chair when pretty much everybody in the room raised their hand, which is strange, don't you think? Yep. Well, after he got his wits back, he told a story. And here's how it goes. It says, after being alone in his car and driving down a dark country road at night. Along the edge of the road, he spotted a giant owl, about 5 feet tall. Right?
Yeah.
He slowed the car, rolled down the window, and stopped directly next to the owl.
And said, "Hey!"
It didn't fly away.
Oh, dang.
It just stood there. He said he got a very weird vibe, and it looked like the owl was angry and wanted him to leave. So the guy just drove off and was feeling confused and scared. Later, he went on to photograph an owl nest in a wooded area near his home. And when he saw the owl in the nest, he immediately remembered, I don't think that was an owl I saw that night.
So it changed.
Yeah.
So what's he claiming there?
It says eventually under hypnosis, he tried to retrieve a more detailed memory, but all he came up with was that the giant owl that he saw on the side of the road was wearing boots.
Yeah, I don't like that.
Yeah, the implication of this story is that it was a projection. And some people think that extraterrestrials use owls, and they use this as a deception. And a screen memory is what they call it.
Mm-hmm.
They give you false memories, right? So instead of what appeared to might have been a regular gray alien with black eyes, they try to confuse you, the abductee, or camouflage themselves as being an owl. The 5-foot-tall owl wearing boots is a good example of a screen memory. And this story is not the first. There are numerous tales of other people, alien abductees, who claim to have seen owls. And it's not just owls. People have also seen deer, cats, raccoons, clowns, even Jesus.
Did you imagine clowns? Everybody's got that one thing about a creepy clown. Imagine some crazy, creepy clown.
Right?
That'd go over great.
Right, yeah. So, but whatever it is, it's like a false memory is being implanted on these people. And the most common animal used, it seems to be an owl. There are several reports, and I've got a couple here. Here's one from a guy, and this is what he says. He said, I made plans for a Saturday night with my best friend. I was going down to meet him at his house, and then we would go downtown. I spoke with him about 8 p.m. and told him that I was walking out the door and I would be at his place in about 20 minutes. He told me to make it quick because he was ready to leave. He was ready to get out on the town.
He's ready to go get his drink on.
That's right. He says, I remember leaving the house and pulling out of the driveway. As I was just started to get a little bit dark outside, I drove about a half a mile down the road before I saw a huge, whitish gray owl standing in the middle of the road. It was about 3 feet tall. I don't remember hitting it or anything like that, just seeing it standing there in front of the car. The next thing I remember, I was pulling into the driveway of my friend's house, and it was dark out. And when I went in, my friend was furious. He said, where the F have you been? You said you were leaving right away. I told him that I did leave right away, to which he replied, it's after 10 o'clock. I started to tell him what had happened. But as soon as the words of a 3-foot owl came out of my mouth, I felt like an idiot. I ended up apologizing for being late, and we left. I was sober until that point, but then I drank myself ridiculous to get the uneasy feeling I had in the pit of my stomach. Years later, I read a book that talked about UFOs and missing time. And when I saw that other people had been seeing owls or rabbits or deer, I almost threw up.
I wonder why it's all these different, also, not just owls, but I wonder why it's like deer and rabbits. I mean, I don't understand the different animals unless it's just something that they know we're used to seeing.
I don't know. It's like they're camouflaging themselves, right?
Yeah.
They're trying to implant a memory.
Yeah.
They're trying to.
That's pretty wild.
Right? To conceal themselves. It says in 2011, Mike, he told me that he received an email from a guy named Kevin. And this was about the movie trailer for the movie The Fourth Kind.
That movie, really, honestly, I know it was kind of a turd, but it still creeps me out.
Yeah,
it really does, man.
Really,
whenever
right?
they're talking, when the guy's talking about the owl and he's like in hypnosis and he's on all the sound, something about it just creeps me out.
Well, and it goes along with that last guy's story. He's like, after I said it, he's like, man, I don't really think I saw an owl.
Yeah,
he didn't notice it till he actually was taking pictures of an owl.
Yeah,
the first guy I talked about. Anyways, this guy Kevin, he says when that movie The Fourth Kind came out, I saw the trailer for it, and I nearly lost my mind. All my life, I've had weird experiences with owls. especially great snowy owls, all over, places they shouldn't have been, and a lot of them when I was driving all by myself. Many of those times when I could have lost time and I never would have even noticed it. White owls have sat outside my window, they've been in my bedroom, and they've flown right out in front of my car several times, a few times looking impossibly huge. I used to tell people about the owls. The one thing that people didn't believe is that I saw so many white owls, and that I saw them in such weird places. Another thing was that I always was alone when I saw them. They both excited me and made me very, very afraid. When I saw the trailer for that movie, I became very frightened. But I was also intrigued. I downloaded the movie and watched it all by myself one night. That was a huge mistake. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't sleep the next night either. And by the third night, I was dreaming about owls and aliens. I was a wreck for a couple of weeks. I was afraid. I've seen all sorts of abduction stuff. I've read a lot of books and studied up on the sort of thing for many, many years. But I've never reacted like that. Right? That is creepy.
Yeah.
Here's another story. Chris Bledsoe. He's also a UFO abductee. Both him and his son had concurrent missing time experiences, as well as seeing a small glowing humanoid on the night of January 8th, 2007. Now, this happened while him and a group of people were fishing along the Cape Fear River in North Carolina, and they had 3 other witnesses. The entire group saw multiple UFOs at close range. Now, he goes on to say, a pair of owls showed up almost immediately after the abduction. The 2 owls took up residence in a hickory tree right next to my home, and he could often hear a third owl off in the forest nearby. He describes these as being big brown owls that would make a strong hooting call. These would probably be common barred owls. See, Chris was born and raised in the house right next door to the house he stated that he had lived in, and he had never seen owls in this area his entire life. After this initial abduction experience, Chris spent almost a year locked away in one room of this home. He was overwhelmed by the trauma of the night that he and his son had when they were fishing. The room was on the back corner of the house, near a hickory tree, where the owls always stayed. He was having a terrible time relating to his family and ended up seeking some solace with a citizen band radio. He used this radio to communicate to people outside his room. He even built a 131-foot tall metal frame tower with an antenna to boost the receiving power of his radio system. Not like today we can do podcast, right?
Right.
There was a thick cable connecting the tower to the CB. And after he finished the tower, one lone owl was repeatedly seen in full daylight sitting on the metal framework. He said the owl had an eerie presence and had seemed to be continually staring at him. On June 25th, 2011, the day of his 28th wedding anniversary, lightning struck the antenna, and the current followed the cable, and then went back to the back room and exploded in flames. All the CB equipment was destroyed, as well as a lot of the paper documentation from his abduction case. If Chris had been in the room, as he usually was, he feels strongly that he would have been instantly killed. After that night, he never saw the owls again, and he always felt that the owls were some sort of warning. But Chris goes on to say that he had some curious owl experiences earlier in his life. In 1968, as a 7-year-old boy, he was at a summer camp run by the local church, and he was waiting for his mother near a tree next to the parking lot. As he was leaning against the trunk of the tree, he looked up and saw a huge owl on a branch within reach of where he stood. He didn't hear it land, and it wasn't there when he first leaned against the tree. He told me in a face-to-face conversation, and I was struck about how strange this emotional resonance had 39 years later after it happened. This is what Mike Clellan said. So that is incredible, right?
It's knowing a little bit about it. It's a very kind of strange, unsettling thing.
Man, why is it they're always confusing people with these animal presences?
Well, just the whole thing with the owls. The owl thing is a very unsettling deal. There's just, I don't know, there's just something that's not right about it all the way around, like I said.
Right. Okay. This next story is from our friend David Weatherly.
Yeah.
Now, everybody knows him. He's an author and paranormal researcher. And he actually had a story himself with owls. And he said he was going a long time ago to interview a witness of a UFO abduction named Joan. And she was a young mother who had been having ongoing UFO sightings in and around her home. Now, Weatherly, he said he pulled into the driveway just as the sun was setting. And this was his first visit to this home. He described shutting off the engine while sitting in the driver's seat as he put fresh batteries in a small voice recorder in his lap. Now, when he started to do that, he said, as I was looking down to do this, I heard a heavy thud. And I felt a light shake as though something had fallen onto my vehicle. Looking up quickly, I was shocked to see an owl perched on the hood. It turned slowly and looked directly at me. I recognized the species. He said it was a great horned owl. This one was at least 1 or 2 feet tall. It looked at me for a moment, then turned its head, looked forward, down the street, and then repeated this movement and looked back at me. It never made a sound, and after a moment it launched into the air and took off. It was an unusual incident, and I wasn't sure what had caused the owl to land on my vehicle moments after I had turned off the engine. I didn't mention this incident to the Joan when I walked in and went on to conduct my interview. Sitting in Joan's kitchen, I listened quietly as she began to give me details of her UFO sightings. Like many people who report repeated encounters, Joan had experienced some odd things in her life. On 2 occasions, she had experienced missing time, lapses in a routine that she couldn't simply explain and didn't have any clear memory of. Once she had told me about her sightings. I brought up her children. Joan had 2 kids, a daughter 12 years old and a son that was 7.
Okay.
Her daughter had not mentioned anything unusual since the UFO activity had begun. But her son, however, had started to talk about lights in the sky and little men. He had also developed an imaginary friend. This is common for young people to do, but the timing was rather curious. As I sat talking to Joan, her son came into the kitchen. He calmly reported to his mother, "It's at my window again, Mommy." Joan assured her son that it was already gone. She excused herself from the interview and took a moment and walked with her son to his bedroom. When she returned to the kitchen, she explained that a large owl had started coming to her son's window and perching on the sill outside. She seemed to think that the bird was attracted to the bedroom light, or possibly to her son's cat that often sat on the table just inside his window. I asked if she had ever seen the owl herself, and she reported that she had not, but her daughter had witnessed the owl on a couple of occasions. The neighbor also had informed Joan that he had seen a large owl, really large, in her yard a few times. Interesting enough, the large owl in her yard was never seen again, and all the owl occurrences started happening after her first UFO sighting.
So she never had it before?
Nope.
And it was afterwards that it was all...
Yeah. And that's from our buddy David Weatherly.
Yeah.
So he thinks it's odd too. Now, Whitley Strieber, everybody knows Whitley Strieber. He's written the book Communion, among many others. And after interviewing numerous alien abductees that have had numerous encounters with owls, and as well as many other animals, but especially owls, he speculates that the Greys might be able to literally see through the eyes of owls. They have the ability to both fly and see in almost total darkness. That would make the owls an excellent choice for the role of an alien surveillance camera. So he thinks that they might be using owls to spy on people.
That's a pretty cool theory.
Now, the thing that really makes this exciting is not just these crazy stories that I've read about or people have seen in movies, but when we were on that show a year ago on the Grayling Report with Micah Hanks and Mike Cleland, Cam actually revealed a story that he had never previously told me.
Yeah.
And if you would, Cam, I'd like you to tell that.
Yeah, I'll talk about it. It actually happened to my mother is actually who it happened to. And, man, it's been a while since I've even...
It's a crazy story because, I mean, me and Cam have been friends since we were kids.
Yeah. And I'm trying to even remember how many years ago it was, because my mother has this. This stuff happens to her on the regular with these owls. This is something that seems to be an occurrence.
She's always had a proclivity for owls, right?
Yes.
She likes them.
Ever since she was a little girl.
Dolls and
she's got paintings and sculptures and I mean
what's weird about that is some of the guys that I told this story of. Now, of course, I'm just reading here. But they show pictures of them, and they've actually shown pictures of them as a child, and in their bedrooms, they'll have, like, pictures of owls.
Yeah, like it's – well, and that's what I asked her. I set her aside after hearing I'd listened to an interview with Mike, and kind of done some reading and stuff on his, and that's what made me ask. My mom came down, and she lives –
You actually spoke with Mike, too, right?
Yeah, I talked to Mike for almost an hour on the phone about it, and this is back right after we were on the show with him and Micah, and like I said, my mom lives about an hour north from where we live right now, and she's been a vet tech for like 30 years. I mean, that's all she's ever done is work with animals. And so she came down and I went to asking her, about why she had always, because all I could remember about her was enjoying the owls. So I had to ask her, what got you involved? And she's like, I don't know. It's always been something that I've been around or something that I've loved ever since I was little. And I can remember them always being at my home with her and her sister, would be outside playing. And they were always in the backyard, in the trees. And I was like, man, I didn't tell her any of these other connections. I didn't tell her any of this stuff. And I talked to her about it, and it's always like, oh, yeah, they're always like, I'll be at the house one evening. They'll come down and like land on the hood of my truck. I'm like, what? So she's, going on. Well, then I finally tell her, I'm like, there's kind of some strange things and all that stuff. And I said, before I told her these connections that Mike had made, I said, have you ever seen a large one? And she stopped for a second. She kind of thought, and she goes, like how large? I go, like the biggest one you've ever seen. And that's when she told the story I told on Micah's show. Basically, she was in her house. She was watering her plants or something one evening, just milling around. Like, she's a busybody, so she mills all the time. And she said the dog was barking. Wanted to go out the door in her sunroom where she has all of her plants and all of her stuff set up. So she went to let him out and said she let him out, and he ran down the driveway. Now, her driveway is a big gravel driveway, probably sets, I don't know, probably 75 to 100 yards from the house, all the way down it. Let's say 75. So she said he ran about halfway down the driveway and was barking down towards the gate. And of course, the gate's open, so somebody can come on up to the house whenever they want to. Kept barking. She said she didn't, what the hell's going on? So she lets herself out the door and goes in there and she's looking, and she said she notices he's barking at like something. So she gets down there past him and she realizes it's an owl. So she's like, he's just standing on the ground, just sitting there. And she says as she gets a little closer, that's when she realizes how big it was. And she goes, this thing was probably 4 foot tall, is what she told me.
Right.
This is like she said 3 to 4 feet, but she said, I'm going to say it's closer to 4 foot tall. Well, I mean, even 3 foot is a big owl.
Yeah.
I mean, that's ridiculously big owl. And then the more she taught it, that's when I went to asking her questions. Can you tell me what it looked like? Can you tell me? And I go, could you draw it? Because she sketches stuff all the time. She goes, sure. So she sketched this owl. I go, okay, looks like an owl. She goes, well, it looked like that except for its eyes and its face. I go, well, what do you mean? And she sketched its face a little longer and its eyes a little more almond-shaped, a little bit bigger, a little more almond-shaped. She goes, that's what it looked like. I go, that's pretty creepy. I go, did it have any barring on it or any different off colors? She goes, nah, it was just kind of like a gray, like an ashy gray, the whole thing, and that big. I go, Mom, that's pretty wild. I said, are you sure? Are you sure about this? She goes, yeah. She goes, I'm pretty sure because I got close to it waving my hands like you're going to shoo something out of the way.
Right,
shoo your cat out of the house, shoo something out of the yard. And she said, as I was walking, I was going, go on, get out of here for it to fly. And it didn't fly. She said it kind of took a step or two towards her. And she said, I bugged out at that point. I was just like, oh, and then boom, her and the dog went back in the house. She didn't think anything of it after that. That was it. So when I remember telling her these, she's telling me all this, and I was asking her, and then I tell her Mike's connections and all that stuff. My mother goes dead silence and starts trembling. Instantly, just starts trembling. She's just freaked out from that whole point. And she goes and sits down, and she don't really talk a whole lot for like 4 or 5 minutes. She has nothing to say. You can just tell like she's trying to compose herself. And I said, do you have anything else to add? She goes, no, I don't have any missing time. I don't have any, any memories of being taken or even any memories of seeing lights, anything like that. She goes, it's just creepy because she was like, I have owls all the time around my house.
That's what Mike says.
It's really strange. Well, here's something even stranger. I had to pick up some paperwork for a dog that we just rescued. And she was getting some paperwork done and bringing us some stuff down, and all that stuff, and from the clinic. So I met her in between here and where she lives,
right.
Halfway. And I stopped at the little gas station there and all that stuff, and I was waiting to meet her. And it was in the evening. It was already dark. And I remember sitting there, and this is no joke. It's funny that you even do this right now, this whole segment. I was sitting in the truck, and 30 seconds before she gets there, maybe a minute, an owl flies up and lands on the utility pole up above me. And
Are you kidding me?
Dead serious, man. I'm dead serious. Starts hooing and all that stuff, and then flies off. And within 30 seconds of him flying off, my mom pulls up.
That is
And
bizarre.
I'm sitting there, and I'm just laughing. She goes, what's so funny? And I tell her, and she just laughs about it now. Now she's just like, I don't know. I have no idea. And I go, that was really strange. She goes, I said, it would have been one thing if he would have landed when I pulled up, or he would have, something. But the fact that he was within 60 seconds of he lands, makes some noise, and flies off, and my mother comes into view and parks, that's just kind of a strange synchronicity.
Man, that is crazy. Well, and synchronicity is linked with UFO abductions.
Yeah. So
and the owls.
It's, I don't know, man. It's just with her, like I said, I've talked with her about a bunch of this stuff. And my mother's real open to all these things.
No, yeah,
absolutely. She's super open to all these things. And she's one of those ones that she'll call me up. She's had a strange feeling.
She always knows when we're in studio.
Yeah, that is weird. That's getting strange, too. Every time we sit down and get ready to start recording, my phone will go off. It's my mother.
It's almost, I'm telling you.
Almost, and it doesn't matter
it's almost
what day.
2 minutes before we start recording.
Yep. Every time. And it doesn't matter. We could pick a day. It could be a different time. We don't even, lots of times we have to work it around our schedules, so we don't even record at set times, set days. Lots of times we have to record certain things. It's just like, it doesn't matter. 2 minutes before we fire up everything. Everything can be turned on. We're getting ready to go. Phone rings. It's my mom.
It's always your mom.
Yeah, so it's really strange.
It is weird.
Yeah, she's crazy, so I guess that's what it is anyway. But yeah, so yeah, the thing with the owls is something that kind of hits close to home now, so it's kind of funny.
That is
something
an
to keep up
interesting
with.
Story, and creepy.
I'm waiting for her to go missing, have missing time, something like that, so they'll bring her back.
All right,
I'm telling you,
folks.
kidding, they'll bring her back. I mean, her and my dad didn't stay together more than like 6-7 years, so there's no way an alien will take her off anywhere.
All right, folks. Well, stay with us when we get back from the break. We're going to wrap this whole thing up. This is Expanded Perspectives.
All right, folks, we're back. We're going to wrap this little jewel up. We're going to do a little shout-outs. Going to talk about what we got coming up and make sure everybody's having a good Monday to get everything rolling.
That's right. That's right.
I want to just give a shout-out to Mr. Loki and to Bramnut both for giving us some kick-ass reviews on iTunes.
Much.
I love the reviews. Man, thanks, folks. Keep them coming. It's awesome. I love getting everything. And also, too, there's a bunch of folks that have sent us messages on our Facebook page. Chris, Jesse, Janet, Stephen, Kristen, Vance, Andrew, Chris Sutton, Lonnie. Man, we get Michael, Mr. McAvoy, Mr. Paul Workman. We get tons of messages, and I love, like I said, I may not be able to get to you at that very moment. I will get to you, I promise.
Yeah,
we'll get where we can, and I just love talking to everybody. We get some really, really cool stories. We get some really, really kick-ass ideas.
Yeah, absolutely. And like Cam said at the end of his MIB segment, if you have any cool MIB stories personally or any owl stories, please email the show, expandedperspectives@yahoo.com, or call into our number. Cam, what's the number?
817-945-3828.
We love to hear those
Just throw
stories.
a 1 in front of it, too. I'm pretty sure that's how that works. I also got a message from Seth. Seth sent me some cool ideas that that's what I love. And that's the way I feel about it. I mean, that's what I like the most is we're all, we're just trying to make it entertaining. We're all trying to learn and have a good time. So keep them coming, just keep the ideas swarming because, sometimes my brain breaks. I've got too much going on.
That's right. And if you're listening to this on a podcast or Dark Matter Radio or wherever you're at, if you like the show, don't forget August 1st, we're starting Expanded Perspectives Elite.
I'm scared. Yeah, we're going to be offering an extra show every Thursday.
That's right. That's
Every
not one
Thursday.
extra show a month. It's every Thursday. So
That's
4
true.
additional shows per month.
Yeah. And we were just interviewed on Grammarica's show. So
That's right. Yep.
Our homies at Grammarica, Ben and Darren and Graham, those guys are so much fun, man. I had a great time talking to them.
I did too.
And they're our brothers in the frozen north. We're going to have, if the heat keeps up, I'm going to go see them sooner than later.
Man, I've been to Calgary like 4 times. It's nice.
I'm going to go up there. But so they chatted it up with us, and we had a great time talking to them. And we'll make sure everybody knows whenever that one comes out. But we're going to do a new show, like we said, every Thursday, and that'll be the extra show. And I'm kind of nervous.
Yep.
I don't know why.
I am too, but starting August 1st, you'll be able to see the links on the website, and you'll be able to click on those and get your debit cards out, and you'll be able to sign up, folks.
Yeah, drop your whopping $5. $5.
Yeah, that's right.
$5, 4 shows. And, of course, you're always going to get the free stuff, like we said before on
Absolutely.
the other show. You're always going to get the free stuff. You're always going to get the best interviews. We're always going to do that stuff. We're just going to basically do what we did today on another show.
That's right.
That's basically going to be it. New stories, new segments, and just crazier, wackier stuff.
There's
And
nothing
that's
hidden,
gonna
no
be it.
hidden interviews or anything like
No.
that. If you like the normal show, you're going to like the extra show. So
That'll be it. Yeah. We've been on Dark Matter Radio for the week. That was fun.
yeah, that's cool.
We're still going to keep getting replayed on there. So if y'all are listening to us on Dark Matter, thanks. We appreciate it. It's
All right,
awesome.
folks, have a good week. Stay out of trouble. Give somebody a hug.
If you can't be good at it.
That's right. See you later.
Peace.